What's up, y'all? My name is Samantha Bertu, and I work full-time as a software engineer in New York City. In my previous video, I talked about the approach you should take when learning how to code. Today, we're going to talk about the best resources to get you started coding. All the resources mentioned in the video will be on the free. So don't worry, learning how to code should not cost you anything. So grab a pen and some paper to take some notes, and let's go. We don't want to get every single beginner course on Udemy and get stuck in the tutorial rut. We probably only just need one. So no matter what language you're learning, whether that is JavaScript, Python, Java, you name it, we just want to make sure we are building projects so we can learn side by side with the resources that we picked up. This way, we are setting up our portfolio way before we even start looking for a job. Here is the ultimate checklist for where you can start learning how to code to get a job as a software engineer. I think the fastest way to get a job in tech is with web development. That is going to include HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Git, plus a high-level or abstract knowledge about the backend. You are also going to have to spend time coding. I would recommend at least 15 to 20 hours a week. Familiarize yourself with programming in order to get a job quickly. Now, we first want to start off with JavaScript. This might be contrary to popular belief, but we want to make sure programming is something we actually like versus figuring out we don't like it after we spend all this time writing HTML and CSS. With JavaScript or any other programming language, we want to nail down the fundamentals. This will include variables, functions, arrays, for loops, conditionals, and if statements, as well as classes and objects. And you can start learning these topics on an interactive coding platform such as Code Academy. The platform has a hands-on approach to learning, and you don't have to set up any type of environment to get started. A lot of beginners get stuck on setting up their environment, and it takes away from learning. Code Academy not only breaks down coding concepts into small chunks, it also pairs each concept with an exercise that you have to solve before moving on to the next topic. This way, you can't just skip ahead to the fun stuff. The site really forces you to debug your code as you learn. You will want to take the Learn JavaScript course Code Academy has on their website. Learn JavaScript as a programming language first, then tackle the DOM. You will want to familiarize yourself with JavaScript syntax and operations and use it to solve some basic programming problems. A good way to practice these programming problems is with algorithms. Spend at least 2 hours a week on algorithms in conjunction with the Learn JavaScript course. We need to build up our logic skills, and we can build up these skills with practice. At first, you might not know enough about JavaScript to actually solve the problem. So your main focus here is to think about how you would solve it. This is what developers would call pseudocode. So let's say we have the question that asks us to get the average from an array of numbers. In math, we would get the average. We'll just Google that. Turns out we take the total amount of all the numbers and divide it by the amount of numbers. So in pseudocode, we would add up all the numbers to get the sum, then find out how many numbers we counted, and lastly, we would divide the sum of all the numbers by the count. And later, you will start understanding JavaScript. You can fill in the pseudocode with the actual code, like so. You can sign up for Code Wars for free, and it will give you a lot of algorithms you can solve. But eventually, the problems are going to get harder, and you will need to start learning about data structures. This is getting into the computer science territory of programming, and this is where I recommend you watch videos. But we're not going to watch a bunch of random videos. We're going to take the Harvard CS50 Introduction to Computer Science course, a class from Harvard, and it's free? Yes, please. You should use 10 hours of your coding week and use the other 5 hours building projects or finishing up the Codecademy course. At this point, you can stop the algorithms because we'll be doing them in the course. Once you feel good about your basic JavaScript skills, you will want to dip your toes into HTML and CSS. This is going to be your foundation to building any web application, so you want to spend about 2 to 4 weeks here. It's not important to know every single tiny detail, just the basics. For HTML, you will want to know about tags. That would include divs, headers, paragraphs, inputs and form fields, anchor tags, and list elements. With CSS, there's a lot more to know, but we want to keep to the basics. I would recommend learning CSS selectors, how to size an image, flexbox, and how to add color. On Code Academy, you could take the Learn HTML and Learn CSS course, and it should take you about 24 hours to complete both courses. After completing all 3 courses, you'll then want to take what you learned and start building projects. And you can start working on these projects in an online editor called Code Sandbox. It takes the hassle of creating your own development environment away so you can focus on coding. Developers use it as a prototyping tool for rapid web development, and it looks like they have a JavaScript environment with a place for us to write HTML and CSS. Plus, it also has live updates as you code. Pretty cool, right? If you prefer not to code online and use your local environment, I would recommend using VS Code as your editor. It is the highest ranking editor amongst developers, and it can be used with so many different languages. Now, you're probably wondering what project you should build. You can check out my latest video and it will give you great examples. But ideally, it needs to be something that you're interested in and useful for you or somebody else. That way you can stay motivated when building projects. But before that, I think you should try to build 2 or 3 of these projects, like a clock or a calculator. This is because there are tons of examples of these projects, so if you get stuck, you can take a sneak peek to get yourself unstuck. You can use Google or Stack Overflow, which is a forum where developers ask coding questions looking for solutions to help you get unstuck. There is no shame in copying code you don't understand to help you achieve your end goal. I copy from Stack Overflow all the time. But be honest with yourself. And don't copy somebody's whole project and call it your own. Let's say you have a few projects under your belt. You're feeling good, you're feeling confident, you really love your JavaScript skills. Let's show them off to the world and deploy our code. Now, if you built your projects in Code Sandbox, you can share the link that they provide you. But if you choose not to, the easiest way to do this is with Netlify, and it's really simple. But before you deploy your code, we need to understand Git. Git is a way to work on code and save your progress, as well as working on code with other people. You might hear the term GitHub a lot. GitHub is an online service that uses Git to connect and upload or download resources. Git is an open source tool that you use locally on your computer, whereas GitHub is owned by Microsoft and is free for personal use. You will use Git every day when you land a job, so it's important to know the basics, like how to commit code, how to push code, and how to pull down code from master. And you will want to push your code to GitHub, and Netlify will deploy your code for you after you set it up. And now you can start showing your beautiful projects to the whole world. If you like the content, please feel free to subscribe and hit that like button. It's another great resource on the free